You're lying awake at 2 a.m. The room is dark. Your body is exhausted, but your brain will not stop. It is replaying a conversation from 3 days ago. It is running through every possible thing that could go wrong tomorrow. It is asking questions you cannot answer. And no matter how many times you tell it to stop, it just keeps going. You already know this feeling. But what you probably do not know is why your brain does this. And the answer reaches back over 300,000 years into a world you have never seen. Your overthinking is not a flaw. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is an ancient survival system that worked flawlessly for hundreds of thousands of years. The problem is not that your brain thinks too much. The problem is that it was never designed for the world you live in today. Here is what is actually happening inside your skull. Your brain has two core operating modes. One is fast, automatic, and reactive. The other is slow, deliberate, and analytical. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent decades mapping these systems, calling them System 1 and System 2. System 1 runs almost everything without you noticing: your heartbeat, your reflexes, your gut reactions. System 2 is the one that kicks in when something demands focused attention. The trouble is that System 2 is expensive. It burns a significant amount of glucose. It tires quickly. And your ancient brain is deeply reluctant to use it unless it absolutely has to. So what triggers it to run anyway, especially at night, especially when you want it to stop? The answer is threat detection. Deep inside your brain sits a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. It is older than language. It is older than rational thought. For most of human history, this structure kept your ancestors alive. When a predator moved in the shadows, the amygdala fired first and asked questions later. It did not wait for a rational risk assessment. It flooded the body with cortisol and adrenaline, sharpened attention, and forced the brain into a tight, obsessive loop focused on the threat. That loop is what you call overthinking. The neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux, who spent years studying fear and memory at New York University, showed that the amygdala processes emotional threats before the thinking brain even gets the signal. By the time your prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought, receives the message, the emotional response is already underway. Your body is already tense. Your thoughts are already narrowing, and the loop has already started spinning. Now, here is the critical part. For your ancestors, that loop had a natural off switch. The threat either went away, the predator left, the storm passed, the rival backed down, or it did not, and the outcome resolved one way or the other. Either way, the situation ended. The brain got closure. The loop stopped. Your brain today does not get that closure. The threats your amygdala is reacting to are not lions or enemy tribes. They are emails, performance reviews, a text message that went unanswered, a comment someone made that you cannot stop hearing. These threats have no clear endpoint. There is no moment where the danger passes and the system resets, so the loop just keeps running. Replaying, rerouting, searching for an answer that never comes. Matthew Walker, the sleep researcher and neuroscientist at the University of California, Berkeley, found something that makes this even more striking. During REM sleep, your brain actually replays emotionally charged memories from the day, stripping out the stress hormones and reprocessing the experience so it feels less threatening by morning. But if you cannot fall asleep because you are overthinking, your brain never gets to run that process, which means the emotional charge stays attached to the memory, which means your amygdala keeps flagging it as unresolved, which means you keep thinking about it. Overthinking does not cause poor sleep. Poor sleep causes more overthinking. and the cycle feeds itself. So how did ancient humans break the loop? The answer is simpler and stranger than almost anything modern psychology has offered. They moved. For 95% of human history, a threat response was always followed by physical action. Your ancestor did not sit in a cave staring at the ceiling replaying the moment a rival threatened them. They ran. They climbed. They hunted. They dug. They built. The body moved, and in moving, it burned off the cortisol and adrenaline the amygdala had released. The stress chemicals were designed to fuel action. Once they were used up, the brain registered that the threat was over. The loop ended. Your modern brain still works exactly this way. The loop does not know that you're lying in a comfortable bed in a heated room with no actual predator nearby. It only knows that stress hormones are present and an action response has not happened yet. So it keeps running. It keeps preparing you. It keeps thinking. The ancient trick is not a meditation app. It is not a breathing exercise. It is not a journaling prompt. Those things can help, but they are all attempting to talk your way out of a system that does not speak language. The amygdala does not respond to logic. It responds to signals from the body. This is what the research of neuroscientist Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California revealed when he spent years studying patients with damage to the emotional centers of the brain. People who lost their emotional processing did not become perfectly rational. They became unable to make decisions at all. Because the body and brain are not separate systems sending messages back and forth. They are one continuous loop. What you feel in your body is what your brain believes about the world. To break the overthinking loop, you have to change what your body is reporting, not your thoughts. Your body. Here is how it works in practice. When the loop starts, your first instinct is to try to think your way out of it, to reason with it, to find the answer that will make it stop. But that is exactly the wrong move. Engaging System 2. Thinking while the amygdala is active is like trying to have a rational conversation in the middle of an alarm going off. The alarm has to be switched off first. Then you can think clearly. The physical signal that tells the amygdala the threat is resolved is not a thought. It is a full physiological shift. Movement is the fastest route. Even 5 minutes of brisk walking, enough to raise your heart rate slightly, begins to clear cortisol. It signals to the ancient threat system that you have responded to the danger, that you are no longer frozen and helpless, that the situation has moved. If movement is not possible, if you're lying in bed at 2 a.m. and you cannot get up, the second fastest route is controlled exhale extended breathing. Not deep breathing. Exhale extended breathing. Your exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's off switch for the threat response. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Breathe out for 8. The long exhale physically signals the amygdala that the danger has passed. It is not metaphorical. It is biological. You are sending a chemical message through your nervous system telling a 300,000-year-old survival program to stand down. And there is something else your ancient ancestors had that you do not. They were rarely alone with their thoughts. Prehistoric humans lived in tight bands of 20 to 150 people. Threat processing was communal. When something frightening happened, it was talked through around the fire. Stories were told. The experience was shared, named, and placed into a narrative that gave it meaning. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University has shown across decades of research that social bonding was the primary stress regulation mechanism for most of human history. Grooming, storytelling, shared laughter. These were not luxuries. They were the tools that kept the threat detection loop from spinning out of control. When you overthink alone, in silence, you are running an ancient system without the ancient support structure it was built to rely on. The loop is not broken because nothing is completing the circuit. This is why talking about what is bothering you, even briefly, even to someone who cannot fix it, genuinely works. It is not just emotional support, it is a neurological intervention. Naming a threat out loud activates the prefrontal cortex and reduces amygdala reactivity. The researcher Matthew Lieberman at UCLA called this process affect labeling. Putting feelings into words literally dampens the emotional signal. Your ancient brain hears that you have processed the threat verbally and shared it with the group. The loop registers closure. The thinking slows. You are not overthinking because you are broken. You are overthinking because you are built exactly right for a world that no longer exists. Your amygdala is doing its job. It is scanning for threats, flagging uncertainties, running simulations to keep you safe. In a forest, at night, surrounded by predators and rival groups, that exact behavior would have saved your life 100 times over. The brain that never stopped thinking was the brain that survived. But now that brain is lying in your comfortable, heated, entirely safe room, generating adrenaline because of an unanswered email, and it does not know the difference. The trick is not to fight it. The trick is to speak its language, to give the ancient system what it was designed to receive: movement, connection, exhale, and closure, so it can finally stand down and let you sleep. Tonight, when your brain will not stop, do not try to think your way out. Move, breathe, name it, share it. Close the loop the way your ancestors always did. Because the brain that cannot stop thinking about danger? That brain kept your family line alive for 300,000 years. The least you can do is learn to work with it.